Lando Norris will partner Carlos Sainz at McLaren for the 2019 season. Welcome everyone back to F1 Reviews. I didn't do a review of the Monza Grand Prix this weekend, mainly because of Channel 4 putting out the highlights a little bit late and I've had work all day, but I've just got back from work and the breaking news in the last hour is that Lando Norris will partner Carlos Sainz at McLaren next season. A lot of implications with this one, the biggest being that current McLaren driver Stoffel Vandoorne, who was in contention for this seat, is out. We're going to go through all of the stories linked with this move in today's about 5 to 10 minute video. So strap yourself in, sit back and relax as we talk McLaren, we talk F1. Tomorrow is Let's Talk F1, the hour-long podcast, so I'm sure we'll discuss it more then, but let's crack on with it. So, Lando Norris currently second in F2, and it looks like fellow Briton George Russell, he's going to be the driver, I think, he's going to be the driver that I put my money on to win Formula 2. So, why has Norris been given this chance at McLaren, and why is Vandoorne being kicked out for next year? Well, Vandoorne hasn't scored any points in the last 10 races, and has been out-qualified by Alonso every single race this, which, to be honest, on the surface, looks pretty diabolical. Let's be perfectly honest with you. That looks awful. We do have to remember his teammate is Fernando Alonso, two-time world champion, which I've been saying for a very long time. However, as time's gone on, I've been thinking to myself, well, Lewis Hamilton had two-time world champion Fernando Alonso as his teammate in his first year of Formula 1 and was up against him every single weekend. Stoffel has been about 0.2 off Fernando on average this season, which isn't a major gap, but in Formula 1, tenths count. And we know this season, Alonso's had the upgrades, he's had the better package all year, but in his past couple of weekends, supposedly, Vandoorne's gone to his preferred chassis. He's got all the updates that Alonso has. It's not worked. He's had two diabolical weekends being at the back of both the Belgian Grand Prix and this weekend's Italian Grand Prix. Lando Norris, well, he's doing well in Formula 2, like I mentioned, second at the moment, and has a real chance for the title. It's only my prediction that he won't get it, but it's very likely that he will. I think it's only between him and Russell, the two Brits. He's been in for first practice sessions at both the Belgian Grand Prix and at the Italian Grand Prix, and he did well. He did do well. Although at the Italian Grand Prix, he was right at the back. It was a rainy session, a wet session, so you can't really read too much into it. But in Belgium, he was quicker than Stoffel. Stoffel did have some issues with his engine, but he was quicker on one lap pace. I think the team are aware that Vandoorne's been given 2 and a bit years now of Formula 1, and he's not set the world on fire. And not only has he not set the world on fire, he's 26. He wasn't a young man when he joined Formula 1. He's now 26. Almost one of the elder drivers on the grid, which is crazy to say, considering he's only in his second full year of Formula 1. But he's not been consistent enough. He's not been quick enough. And McLaren are looking and saying, with the drivers we have within our whole entire team, including our young driver programs, who is going to be the most likely to win us world championships? Is it Vandoorne, who struggled against Alonso, struggled in his first couple of years, or is it this young guy, Lando Norris, who looks like he's going to win Formula 2 in a very competitive year of Formula 2, I will add, and someone who in the future can lead this team back to greatness like Lewis Hamilton did back in 2007. Now, some of you might be aware that recently I have joined the stream team over on the F1 Word. Sean and Jonty, they invited me on to join their group, join their clan, if you will, and talk F1 once a week. But anyway, last week when I was on, we discussed, is there a hurry to get these young drivers into seats, get those bombs on seats as quickly as possible? And at the time, I said, yeah, I think there is too much pressure on these young drivers as soon as they do well in Formula 2 to rush them into Formula 1. I know Charles Leclerc has done very well. Pierre Gasly was given that little bit more time and has come into Formula 1 and done very well as well. Stoffel Vandoorne had a year out, came in, his first race looked very, very good, but has since tailed off a little bit. So it's very 50-50 on drivers coming in and either doing great straight away or struggling under the pressure. Even Leclerc at the very beginning of the year did struggle in those early few races. However, Vandoorne in the past couple of Grand Prix at weekends where the pressure is on, this is the most amount of pressure he's ever had in his career, he's not performed at all. In fact, this has been the worst 2 races of his whole entire season. At least at the points in this season, he's been roughly near Alonso. The last 2 races, he's been near no one. Yes, we got to say that the McLaren in the last 2 races probably has been the worst car on the grid. But Alonso is still up there near the points. And Vandoorne is nowhere. And for that, I think Vandoorne, for me, he's just about fallen out of favour. I've given him too many breaks. And on this channel, many a time I've been called a Vandoorne fanboy. Even when I've covered the news about Alonso retiring, everyone said I'm a Vandoorne lover, Alonso hater. And I think I've had about enough with Vandoorne now. I really have. And I think it's time he moves on. And I think it's time that this guy, Lando Norris, has a shot. He's been very, very impressive this year in Formula 2, only missing out on points twice, which in Formula 2 is a complete rarity and proves he's a considerably consistent and talented driver. I think he deserves a chance. I think it'll be great to see him in Formula 1. So I'm really looking forward to next year, the partnership of Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. That is going to be a very, very interesting team at McLaren. And a couple of weeks ago, again, when I covered the Sainz move, I did say I think it'd be unlikely for McLaren to take 2 new drivers. I actually thought Sainz would come in and would partner Vandoorne, someone who knows the team well. But again, I have changed my mind since these last 2 Grand Prix. It really has disappointed me, Vandoorne, and I really wanted him to do well, if I'm being totally honest with you. I really did. I really wanted the man to have a real kick up the arse, if you will, and say, right, I'm staying in Formula 1, I'm staying with McLaren. But he doesn't seem to have had that. And he's, like I say, his form has dipped even more, and unfortunately, for the only Belgian on the grid, he's going to be out of McLaren for next season. Before I go, though, I just want to say, don't expect Vandoorne to not be on the grid next season. I think he's a very, very suitable option for the likes of Toro Rosso, for the likes of Sauber. I think those 2 teams can offer Vandoorne another chance in a less pressurised environment, something that Norris, to be fair, he's been chucked in the deep end. I know Sean described McLaren as a pressure cooker, and I think that is a fantastic way of describing it. I'm not joking, this team is in the public eye for sure, under a lot of scrutiny, especially with this strange transition they've been going through since 2014, especially since Ron Dennis has left. So Norris now is this talisman. Although Sainz will be the more experienced man and he will be looked upon in the early days to just get the points for the team and perform, Norris will be this guy that they're hoping in 2021 with the complete change of regulations, McLaren are going to hope they're going to be the number 1 team, and they're going to want Lando Norris, their own driver that they've looked after for years, like they did Hamilton. They're going to want him to be their next world champion, next race winner, next pole sitter, next podium sitter, whatever. They're going to put all their focus and time on him over Carlos Sainz, I believe, which makes the Sainz move even more sensible because I think he'll be a happy number 2. I think he'll be happy just to stay, help them move on, pick up some podiums if McLaren can get back to greatness, but also be that wingman if needed a little bit later on in his career. So I think this is going to be a great partnership between Norris and Sainz. Love this for McLaren. Like I said, Vandoorne, I can very easily see it Sauber or Toro Rosso. That's generally just going to be who's going to give him the chance. But if I was going to put my money on him being anywhere next year, I think it would be safe to say Toro Rosso, mainly because they're struggling to find anyone. They really are struggling to find anyone to fill, well, they have 2 vacant seats, really. Hartley, will he stay? Big question mark still. It looks likely he will, but if they can get Vandoorne in as the other driver, they might look for a younger alternative alongside Hartley, but we're going to discuss that more tomorrow. Also in tomorrow's Let's Talk F1, we're going to discuss the implications of all this McLaren finally being sorted out for next year. What does that mean for Esteban Ocon? Looks like he could now be completely forced out of the sport for next year. So that's going to be really interesting. We're going to be talking about Lance Stroll. When's he going to get this move to Force India? We're going to be talking all that goodness. And we'll discuss a little bit more about this Lando Norris deal, because I'm sure overnight we'll have a few more details about contract length and all that sort of good stuff. Tomorrow as well will be my review for Monza. It's been a crazy couple of days, and can I just say, a fantastic race. Such a shame Raikkonen didn't win. I'll throw that out there. Sorry, Lewis Hamilton fanboys. The dream would have been fantastic for his 100th podium in front of the Tifosi, and that would have been a great way for him to, I hate to say this, to announce his retirement. Oh, that pains me. But a great way for Charles Leclerc to finally announce he'll be signing for Ferrari. We'll be talking about all that and more tomorrow on Let's Talk F1 and in my review of the Monza Grand Prix. I'd love to know what you think about this. Is Norris ready for McLaren? That's what I want to know in the comments. Thank you for watching as always, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.